I understand that. Nobbins, obviously, you've been the closest rival of Arsenal in the last 2 seasons in terms of the league. Do you think they've improved enough to catch you, or more importantly, surpass you this season?
Maybe. Just going back to the goals point, just for a second, because I just wanted to chip in on that point. I take the point that Arsenal have, they scored nearly as many as City last season, absolutely. But then the main thing for me was there were a lot of games last season where there was like a period in particular where Arsenal were winning by a ridiculous amount of goals concentrated in particular games. Like winning their 5-0, 4-0, 6-0, etc. But I believe that City failed to score in the league, failed to score in 3 league games last season. I think that's correct. Whereas Arsenal, I think it was 5 or 6. Now, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when the margins are incredibly fine, having an extra 2 or 3 goalless games does make a difference. So I think I probably would err more on the side of what Saad was saying, where I think that goal scoring, maybe scoring the goals isn't the problem, but spreading out the goals over the games was more the way I look at it. Because again, I know that City, it's very unlikely, like that 0-0 at the Etihad of Arsenal. That was an incredibly unlikely thing to happen. It goes to show how fantastic Arsenal were defensively that day. So it's more about, for me, making sure you score every single game, because if you score, then you obviously can't win if you don't score. And just on like Arsenal, catching up to City, I think a lot would depend on City's transfer business. I don't know if we're going to discuss that. I think that a lot of City players last season underperformed. Haaland underperformed on his XG for like the first time in however long. De Bruyne was out for half the season. We were shoehorning in Alvarez in midfield. Pep had his worst ever period as a league manager in that sort of like November period. But ultimately, we still won the league. So I would like to think from a City fan's perspective that all of those weird things won't happen all at once again. And that, as I say, that our best player won't be out for half the season. But if we don't sign a player who I think we need, then I'm actually more sort of leaning towards maybe Arsenal winning the league if they get the players through the door that we are discussing. So I think, yes, they have done enough.
Can I just say something, because I think my point was kind of misunderstood. I'm not trying to say that we need a striker because we need more goals, but I'm saying that in regards to the games, because Nobbins is right. There was about 5 games where we didn't even score a goal. There was obviously the West Ham game where we couldn't even score to save our life. We were just sitting there approaching it inside the box. Oh, let's just try and pass the ball into the back of the net. Sometimes you need that player like an Alexis Sanchez who says, you know what? I don't care, bro. I'm just going to shoot from outside the box. You know, when I saw against Bayer Leverkusen, when I saw Jesus shoot from outside the box, breath of fresh air. I was like, oh my God, when's the last time I saw my striker shoot from outside the box and actually try and hit the ball at the goal? That's the thing that we're missing. We're missing the game changer. We're missing like someone who has that dog in him, just that says, you know what? I'm not going to pass to you, bro. Yeah, I'm the striker. I'm a greedy guy. So I'm not going to pass to you. I'm going to go for goal because I want to get my goal. I want to save us. Like we need that clinical edge. But I think it's needed. Sometimes Arteta, I don't understand. He sometimes he needs to have that player in there, because although you might not like it, you require it. And that team is screaming for a game changer, someone who is greedy, someone who doesn't want to give up the ball. It's so clear to me. I don't understand how Arteta doesn't see it.
Nobbins, to your point, you're right. But there's something that City did that was very different from what Arsenal did. In those games where you did not score, you didn't lose those games. In the games, and that's one of the problems that we had. In the games where we did not score, like Aston Villa, we lost to them. In the games where we did not, like for you, it was a okay.
Sorry to interrupt, but we did. We lost 2 out of 3.
Yeah, but
we didn't score against Villa, and we lost 1-0. We didn't score against you guys, lost 1-0. And we didn't score against you. That was the one we drew. So actually, only 1 out of 3 we did that.
So those were your losses, right? And so that means that you're not scoring came in your lost games. The games that you lost.
I see what you mean.
So for you, that's what I'm saying. Like your 3 losses happen to be the games where you did not score. For us, in the games where we did not score, not only did we not lose those games and get a draw, we could have gotten a point from Villa, right? We could have gotten a point from every other game that we like. Two games. If we tie 2 games, we tie you guys for points, right? And then we can look at goals difference.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that mentality to not go out there and lose as well is part of the issue. It's like, look, you're there, you're in it. It's 5 more minutes. You haven't scored. None of your players are pulling up to try to score. Nobody's trying anything, but just don't give up. Don't give up and don't lose out.
I get that. I want to go back to something you said, Nobbins, around if City don't sign the player that we need. Who is the player that you need to make you feel 100% confident of retaining your Premier League title?
It's not going to happen, but Bruno Guimaraes would be that player. But basically, I've given the name, but it doesn't have to be him. It has to be someone who, I'm sure we all know this, we still haven't properly replaced Gundogan, so it has to be a player who can satisfy 3 requirements. They have to be able to play ahead of Rodri, alongside Rodri, and most importantly, instead of Rodri as well, for the inevitable games where Rodri either needs a rest or gets suspended or gets an injury. In like the every single league game he missed last season, I believe we lost it. So that's how important he is. So it's, and I just don't. This is why I question: can City go 2 seasons in a row? Can they get away with it 2 years in a row? Basically, is my question. Now, obviously, City can, and maybe. But maybe like Pep will change something to make the midfield a bit more solid in Rodri's absence, inevitable absences. But it's very hard to look past the idea that, because again, Rodri, even towards the end of the season where Rodri was playing and he was available, he wasn't sharp. He was making mistakes in games where he shouldn't really be making mistakes, and that's because he was playing week in, week out, full 90 minutes every single time. So I think there's a bit of mental fatigue there as well. So that's my only question mark. But I do think it sounds quite arrogant. But if City do it right in the transfer market, I don't really see what Arsenal can do to catch us up. But I'm yet to see us do that, if that makes sense.
Richard Rios, Nobbins, Richard Rios. That's who City need. He will cook next.
Tell me more.
So he's a Colombian midfielder. He plays in Brazil though, with Palmeiras. But I don't know if you watch Copa this summer.
I do not really know.
Okay, now fair enough, because I know like the time difference, like the UK and all that. But he cooked. He's a fantastic player. I think he fits right in to what you guys would do at Man City, and I don't think he costs that much. And then you can maybe even use those other funds instead of going to Newcastle for like an 80 million bid with Bruno Guimaraes. You could probably spend 30 on him, and then you still have more money to use for other things. He's a really good player. I think like he would cook for Man City.
If it's a 6-8 hybrid, I'll be all over that.
He's like a 6/8, and like he's really good, like on the ball, good passer, has a good shot on him. I was super impressed from like what I saw this summer, and like I've been hearing about him for a little bit of time. Like when people talked about the Esteval Willian thing, and then the Endrick deal and all that, like they always talk about Richard Rios as well. But he's a little older though. He's like 24 years old, but you're not, still a good age.
Is other than like Bruno from Newcastle, is anyone else like? I know you were linked with Wharton from Palace, but I don't think you're going to go out and pay the 80-90 million price tag. And even if you did, a year ago, he was playing at Blackburn. It's a bit of a huge step up. Is there anyone else I'm surprised you didn't go for Douglas Luiz. I know maybe the price over here probably would have been a bit more than 50 million euro, but he would have been perfect for me.
Yeah, so again, I was looking at players more of like a future plan. I was looking at like a player like João Neves, but he's sadly gone to PSG. I was even looking at a player of the profile of Amadou Onana, not necessarily him, but someone like him. He's obviously gone. I know people whose opinion I respect have suggested. Is it Palacios who plays for Leverkusen? Is that his name? Yeah.
Or Fabian Ruiz.
Yes. Yeah, so he's been suggested, but as City won't arbitrarily buy someone. It will have to be someone of the correct quality. But again, I'm just getting a little bit concerned at the idea of another season where Rodri doesn't really have a proper understudy who can also play with him and can play ahead of him as well.
If he was to get a big injury, sorry, Tay, if he was to get like first game of the season, he's out for 6 months. Who goes in that role? Because you can't replace him with just one player. You need 2 or 3 people to come in the midfield that can do that job.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Last season, and indeed in the Community Shield, most recently, it was Kovacic. That will be the guy who it will be again, I think. Now, unless he's gone up a level in terms of his 6 work, I don't think that's his bag necessarily. It's good to use in a pinch, but that's obviously not his main strength. He will need to be supported by someone else, whether that's Bernardo or Mateus Nunes or Rico Lewis or whoever. You're absolutely right. He can't. Pardon?
Do you think you could change formation?
We might, yeah. We might do. To be fair, like last season we built up in a 2-3 rather than a 3-2, gave a bit more midfield security. Maybe we'll do a false 9 situation where Haaland's not playing, where like an Oscar Bob or Bernardo drops in, helps out in the midfield. So yeah, there is a big problem for Pep to solve if we don't sign that player and if something happens to Rodri.
It's
Yeah,
Pep.
because you were linked with
It's
Kimmich,
Pep.
weren't you? But I don't know if that will be. I don't know if
It's
you'll
Pep.
sign him. I don't think you will.
It's Pep. He can always fix it. I think people still
That's the difference
underestimate.
maker. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like people. I don't even see the City team as a City team. I see Pep Guardiola. I'm just like that's the guy who can turn any player that comes into that team to become world class. The way he sets them up for success. So, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, if Pep's a secret weapon. If anyone can do it, it's Pep. He did it last season, of course. There's every chance he can do it again. But I would personally like to give Pep the best possible opportunity. We didn't give him the right circumstances last season. He was still able to pull a rabbit out of the hat and beat Arsenal to the title. But it's a big ask to do it 2 years on the bounce.
Are you giving up on Calvin Phillips?
I gave up on Calvin Phillips. Well, I just very briefly, because I know Terry wants to move on. The reason why Calvin Phillips doesn't work, was never going to work, even outside of the injury issues, and the fact he was burnt out after Leeds, is that Phillips is, he's now having a centre-back arc, but he's a pure 6. He can't really play as 8. We need someone who can do what Gundogan did, where you can play ahead of Rodri, but you can play alongside him, and you can play instead of him, so he gets enough minutes all around the pitch. Phillips was never going to be that.
Just very quickly, Will, actually, I was going to go to you. If Arsenal were going to pick between Osimhen and Gyökeres, which one do you personally think they should go for?
Ooh, so I would say Osimhen, just because I'd be lying to you if I told you I ever watched a sporting game. So, I see like the compilations and like what he can do, but I can't really judge it based off that. So I would say Victor, like Osimhen, just because I'm more familiar with his game. But if I'm being honest, I don't think they should go in for either of them, Terry. Kind of brought up earlier, like Ivan Toney, for me, that's who I would go out there and get if I was Arsenal.
I like Ivan Toney. I think he's excellent. I'm still surprised nobody's come in for him so far this summer.